Are you sitting with thousands of hours of B-roll content and telling yourself, I'll start posting tomorrow? Are you in your head worried about your friends and family, thinking you're cringe for choosing to be visible? Are you chasing trends instead of building influence? Welcome to the Visibility Standard, where the visionaries of today are changing the rules of their industries and letting their voice be heard. I'm your host, Jazzmyn, and we are setting the standard. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the pod. I am so excited for my guest today. She is the host of the Scarlet Edit Podcast. What started out as her sharing her own story about an affair that she experienced has now evolved into a show that is really highlighting different dynamics of non-traditional relationships and how that's impacted pop culture and her own life, and is really reflecting her own experiences on Instagram and on her podcast. Nikki, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me. I love it.
So tell us how you got started with the Scarlet Edit.
Yeah. So I'll make the backstory as short as possible, right? In 2018, I was about a year out of being divorced, and I had this idea to do a podcast where we talked about major life changes. And the reason that I had thought about it like that is because, this podcasting was a thing back in 2018, but it wasn't huge like it is now, so it's so much more common. And so a lot of the news magazines were still very popular, whether it was like the Today Show or an afternoon talk show or even a Tonight type show. And you would hear a lot of these major life change stories, but often they came from celebrities, athletes, people who had those like true rags to riches evolutions. But what I felt was lacking was like the everyday people stories, and how so many people in life who are just everyday people have these major life change stories that truly changes the trajectory of their life. So because I was busy and younger and not that confident with, can I really put out a podcast? I sat on the idea for 4 years, and then I started it finally in 2022, and it was called Round 2. That show took on an evolution of its own. It was so much fun. I learned a ton about podcasting, but by the time 2025 rolled around, I really felt like I was not putting myself out there in a way that was actually really helping people. And I knew that my own relationship journey was valuable because of everything that I had learned through the course of my different relationships. So I went through a program called the Brand Edit that my business coach offers a few times a year. And it really just made me look inward in a way that I put together a personal brand. I decided to scrap Round 2 and start the Scarlet Edit, and everything just really evolved from there. So I launched the Scarlet Edit in July, and now here we are in January, and I'm like, where has the time gone? And even this show has grown and changed so much since then, and I'm just in love with it.
Yeah, I mean, last time we talked, you didn't have the sign behind you. Like, you've revamped and built your office. You've moved since the last time we've talked. You've allowed yourself to really expand the idea of what the Scarlet Edit looks like for you.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, one of the things when I started it was I knew that if I wanted to make the impact that I really wanted to make, which is sharing with women that we are not defined by our past relationship choices. And just because you made a decision in the past or you were involved in something in the past, that is not a shame or a stigma that you have to carry with you for the rest of your life. And you are still allowed to go off and live the life and find the love that you've always dreamed of and always desired. And in my relationship history, like, I've been married and divorced. After that, I was in a 5-year relationship with a man who was married. And after that, I had a situationship that like broke my heart in ways that I didn't even realize were possible. And so I got to a point where I was like, if I've been through all of this and survived it and still am thriving, why did I go through all of that if it's not to share with other people? So when I kicked off the Scarlet Edit, I immediately wanted to establish trust with my audience that I did not have. I started from absolute zero. So I wanted anyone who came across the show to trust me and to come along for the ride. So I kicked off the first 4 episodes as, bite-sized pieces of my own story as being the other woman in that relationship. And then as it's grown, I've had different guests where we've talked about dating after divorce. I've had a couple of men's coaches on who talk with and work with men about, bringing the spark back to their marriage, or, just being a good man. I've talked with women, God, so many amazing women, about shame, about multiple divorces, about a ton about infidelity, which that is truly the most popular topic on my show. And just really trying to share these stories, not only of what other people have gone through, but their starting over process too. Because I think that's where a lot of people get stuck, is that they have this relationship and it just goes up in flames and they're feeling badly about themselves, or they worked so hard to get out of a abusive situation, whether it's like narcissism or another type of emotional abuse, that it's like the starting over piece is hard. So by sharing these stories, I have had so many messages from people saying, "Oh my God, I thought I was the only one," or "Oh my God, that episode was literally my life story." And it just makes me feel like that the work is valuable. And if each episode makes one other woman feel that they aren't alone, then that's all worth it.
I love that you really highlight the impact that life transitions can have on us, whether it's transitioning from a relationship, transitioning to a different city, and the level of self-reflection that comes with it, the grief, the loss that we process, but also the opportunity for new experiences. And like you said, a lot of times we highlight celebrity stories because those are accessible to us, but it's really the everyday person who's navigating different challenges, who's sharing that story, that we could honestly benefit the most from and feel the most relatable to.
Absolutely. It's so true. I mean, as much as like, you can look at some people with these fabulous stories, it still is like, okay, you're not somebody I'm going to run into at Trader Joe's and like I'll then have a conversation with while we're picking out apples. It just isn't, it's just not. So,
And now you're starting to share more on Instagram as well. What has it been like for you to start blending into like the short form content space?
gosh, I've always loved making short form, but more about like travel and fun and birthday and, my dog. So wanting to grow a community on Instagram has been an interesting journey. Again, I started that account from zero and, like sent it to all of my friends and was like, please follow this new page and this new journey I'm going on. I mean, I share clips from the shows. I did a 90-day well, it was 92. I did a 92-day challenge all of Q4 where I posted every single day. And that was really just an exercise to get more comfortable. It's so funny. And I don't know if you've experienced this, but like, it's so easy for me to sit and talk on a podcast since I do that every day. But then like short form, sometimes I'm like, oh, I don't like the way I looked, or like the angle was weird, or like all of these different things. And so it was really to just get more comfortable doing that. But then I've also had so much fun, like making carousels and, grabbing, using the transcript of my show to find like these hidden gems that guests have said that I can share with other people. So that's been just an enjoyable journey as well.
Yeah, I find with short form content, we're a bit more nitpicky because with podcasting, we know we can edit, it's a longer
Yeah.
conversation, more space to elaborate. With short form, it's like, okay, I've got these 60 seconds to hook someone in or to get my point across. And oh no, my hair is like out of place. Oh no.
Right.
Oh no, the camera looks weird, the lighting's weird. There's so many other factors that we typically focus on with short form content. So it's like a different kind of mental consumption sometimes. But it's so
It
fun when we
is.
allow ourselves to let all of that go and just post and show up. And like you said, with that 90-day challenge, it's like showing up even when you don't feel like it, even when you're tired, even
Yes.
when you may not have anything to say, just exercising that muscle like builds that consistency.
And then also too, it's so funny when I think I don't know if this kind of comes with just age or other life experience where you get to a point where you're like, I truly don't care what a stranger on the internet thinks about me. But I mean, it's always funny too when like a video that you put next to zero effort in, but you were just like, I need to put this out because I promised myself I would. And then that's the one that just like takes off and you're getting all of these comments from people from God knows where. And you're like, okay, thanks. That was fun.
No, like that. I was literally telling someone yesterday, I was like, the video that you think about the least is probably what's going to do the best. And that's
Yeah.
typically because there's like authenticity behind it. In our minds, we're like, I just want to get this video up. And we're not overthinking it. I think there's like maybe some like energetic thing happening too
There
behind it. It's
must
like, this is
be.
me. This is me wanting to connect with other people, build this community. If it resonates, great. That means they are along for the ride with me at my, with not the perfect lighting, with not the perfect words. If they're here for this, I'm sure they'll enjoy like my more polished stuff too.
Totally. Totally.
What do you enjoy most, podcasting or Instagram?
Oh, that's a great question. I think podcasting, to be honest. I mean, I like Instagram because I like Instagram from the perspective of it's like I can see what other folks are up to and I enjoy that. I love taking inspiration from other people. I love seeing how people are editing their videos or if somebody's doing something different or even just the fun stuff like where'd you travel? What'd you eat for dinner last
Mhm.
night? Like, ooh, that looked good. Like what show are you watching? That's always fun. But for me, actually creating content, I really love podcasting. It is funny. I was telling somebody the other day how at first it is very bizarre because it's like I'm sitting here in this room by myself talking
Mhm.
to a camera. I mean, right now I'm talking to you, so that's great. But when I'm doing solo episodes, it's like I'm just sitting here yapping.
Mhm.
But I do think that I think it's helped me in a number of ways that I never anticipated. I think I'm a significantly better listener. I think my vocabulary has increased in some really great ways, but then I'm also hyper focused on some words that I say constantly. I'm trying to stop myself from saying the word that I say all the time which is interesting. I mean, that seems to be my favorite word. But I do and I also love because I've been able to connect with so many people truly across the world that I never
Mhm.
would have met otherwise, or certainly wouldn't have met this quick in life because of podcasting and being able to meet people on social media and then connect and say, like, oh, hey, you should be on my show, or oh, I'd love to be on your
Mhm.
show.
You've experienced so many different transitions within the last year, like we talked about earlier, with moving and really revamping your podcast, really revamping different offers that you provide in your work, in your life. What has been the biggest challenge with balancing it all right now?
Mm. I don't. I think balancing it all is such a fallacy. Like, I mean, when I moved, so I hadn't moved in I bought a house in 2019 in California, and then I sold that house in the middle of 2024. I sold most of my stuff. I packed up the things I was keeping, put all those boxes in a spare bedroom in my brother's house, and then I had a couple of suitcases and I pretty much traveled for the next 15 months. And that was a big adventure for me to just take some time, get to know myself in different ways. I was still working on podcasting and doing coaching, but I wasn't grounded in one spot and I loved it.
Mhm.
But as last summer was beginning to wrap up, I thought, okay, it's time. I'd like to have a place of my own again. I think these suitcases have wore out as have the clothes inside of them. So I was ready to dig back into my stuff again. So I moved here to Arizona and I look back now and I laugh at myself because I was like, getting unpacked will be a breeze. I don't have that much stuff. And it was great because like I did need to buy some things, but I was like, well, all I have to do is go to a store, buy it, and then they deliver it.
Mhm.
Like, how hard can that be? Well, a lot harder than I thought. So the effort and energy that it took to get this place to a point that I not only loved, but that I felt the energy was calm and I felt like,
Mhm.
okay, now I can focus on everything else that I want to do. It took longer than I had anticipated, but it was really, the majority of my energy was going into this while also like maintaining the podcast and putting out episodes. But now that that part of my journey here has been done for a couple of months, I've been able to put so much more effort into the show, put out more episodes, really analyze the data and pay attention to what listeners are talking about and what they're enjoying, and, be able to provide more of that. Because ultimately I want the show to continue to grow.
Yeah. And it sounds like you lived like a nomad life for a bit there.
I did. Yeah. I would go, when I would come back to the States, I would stay with either my brother or my parents, and then kind of stay home for a couple of weeks and figure out where was next, and then buy a ticket and leave again. So it was really, really fun.
What do you think was one of the most valuable lessons you learned during that time period?
I think the most valuable lesson was how little stuff I actually need in order to
Mm.
have an incredibly beautiful and fruitful life. And I am so grateful to have learned that, because at the end of the day, it's stuff. And
Mm.
what really matters is like the people that love us, the conversations that we get to have, like the memories that we make, whether it's like sitting on a bus that's, supposed to take 3 hours, but it ends up taking 5, going from one city to the next and stopping. And it takes those extra 2 hours because the bus driver keeps stopping to have a cigarette break. Or, just like a memory of like sitting by the sea and watching the sunset. Like you don't
Mm.
need anything for that. You just need yourself. And so I really quickly realized after a couple of weeks being gone on the first leg of that year of travel was like, I have my computer, I have a microphone, I have my cell
Mm.
phone and a few outfits, and that's really all I needed.
I was just thinking the nomad life can be really exciting, but there is sometimes very minimal routine. And so
Mhm.
that can offer some like inconsistency. And I was thinking, was your podcast like that anchoring point for you? So, like, wherever you went, no matter where you were living, you always had your podcast, your microphone, your camera ready to record.
Yes. And that is, as somebody who thrives in a routined environment, that truly was the one consistency throughout everything, was that I was always podcasting. I was always recording, meeting people who like maybe I was going to record with, and then obviously editing and getting the show figured out. So that definitely was the one consistent piece. But it also, all that time, it just gave me so much opportunity to learn and to grow and to really figure out, who I am and what it is that like I want to give back to
Hmm.
who the people that come into my world. And yeah, I mean, and it's all, I always tell people like when they're heading off to travel, especially if they are going off on their own for the first time, it's like the things that we take so for granted at home, the easiest things, the things we don't think twice about when we're just off living, often prove to be the most challenging when you're abroad somewhere and you don't think like, oh, there's a language barrier. Oh, or maybe, maybe there isn't an elevator, or maybe it's only a flight of stairs and I have 2 heavy suitcases and a
Hmm.
backpack. I mean, the littlest things can be so hard, but then you get through them. And then on the other side, at least you can laugh at yourself.
Definitely. And it sounds like this last year has been a real opportunity for you to stretch your comfort zone.
Hmm. Oh my God, totally. It's so, I mean, it's wild. I just actually said this morning in a voice note to my business coach that somebody could easily take a look at what I've done over the last like couple of years, whether it's with the travel or sharing this, very personal story on a podcast that like literally anybody in the world can find and consume at any time of day. Yet I still have these moments where I'm like, I haven't been disruptive enough. Like there still is
Mm.
more of me that I'm ready to put out there and ready to share, which is an interesting internal battle, I feel like. Cause like some days I'm like, you've already told your biggest secret, But then on other days I'm like, but there's so much more. So I'm excited about that kind of continued journey and like pushing myself when it comes to the podcast and how I envision it growing over the next, the balance of this year.
Have you always imagined yourself as someone who has wanted to take up space in this way?
Oh, that's such a great question. I've always imagined doing something where I am where I feel like other people can feel okay being themselves because I'm opening that up and saying like, hey, look, like if I can be okay being myself, like you can be okay being yourself. Like it doesn't matter like what your past has looked like. But no, I was never one of those kids that was like, I want to be a dentist or I want to be a race car driver. That I was always just like, whatever I do, I want to be happy.
Mm.
And I remember thinking that just from such a young age, even as I was, getting into high school and starting to think like, okay, I only have a few more years of high school. Like, what am I going to do after that? I was always just like, whatever I want to do, I want to be happy. And I think that happiness is a choice. And I think that it is up to each of us to make that choice if we really want that in our lives. We can't look to other people or other jobs or other places to make us happy. So that's kind of always been my underlying foundation is that I am going to choose to be grateful. I'm going to choose to be happy. And I think that shows in how I kind of put myself out there.
Hmm. Has that also been a similar mantra you've used to build self-confidence? Because a lot of podcasting, when we think about storytelling and sharing some of our biggest stories online with the public, like it's building that self-trust and we can read the books and do the work, but part of it is also choosing to believe in our mission and our voice and choose to share that publicly.
Yeah, I think absolutely it's helped with my self-confidence. I think for me, the more that I have really stared in the mirror, and I mean, and I actually mean that literally, like stared in the mirror and looked at myself and said, like, okay, working on self-talk, I think is so unbelievably important. I know I've shared this story before, although I cannot tell you where. Somewhere in the interwebs, I've talked about this, but in 2022, I was in Greece with my mom and my relationship where I was the other woman that had ended and I was also at the very end of this like situationship that was just horrible. And I remember I was just sitting in the sun and hours went by and I got up to use the bathroom and I was washing my hands and I looked at myself in the mirror and for the first time ever, Jazzmyn, ever in my life, I looked at myself and I said, I value myself. And it
Mhm.
was the most like insane moment because I remember I surprised even myself as I'm standing there like washing and I was like, holy shit.
Mhm.
Like I do. And I think that really changed everything after that moment where I was like, okay, well, because it was like this like light bulb went on. It's like, well, if I value myself, then that's how I have to teach other people to value me, whether it's friends, whether it's intimate relationships, even family, right? And it just changed like the level of confidence. I've never had a problem with confidence. I've always been a leader. I've always you know, done things like been in charge, like kind of liked those roles
Mhm.
in life. But I mean, my self-confidence has gone up and down over time, depending on what's gone on. But I do think that really focusing on myself, focusing on negative self-talk, like reminding myself that, hey, I'm human and all of these things that I'm going through are normal and it's okay to feel all these things and also like not running from feelings and feeling things as I'm going through them I think is one of it's the best way to get through stuff. I mean if you box something
Mhm.
up and push it aside you're gonna have to deal with it eventually. So my thing has always been like, let's just deal with it now because I don't want to
Mhm.
revisit all this crap 6 months from now just because it sucks right now, you know?
Yeah, it just becomes luggage. Like the only way out is
Yes.
through, truly. The
Yes.
only way that we can get to the other side of feeling lost, feeling uncertain, feeling sad, feeling grief, shame, even is is allowing ourselves to look at ourselves, but also allowing other people to see us and validate
Yeah.
us, support us, and celebrate us. And from there, that's where we can really see the momentum in how we view ourselves.
Yeah. And experience. I think experience like helps confidence, right?
Hmm.
Because you can't just think that if you're trying something new, day one, if it's brand new to you, you're not going to be the most confident person because you've never done it before. So, but if you have the courage to just try and to say, like, okay, I want to give this a shot, I want to do this, I believe I could be good at this, well, then you got to do it. And then over time, you can look back and wow, and really see growth. And that's one of the coolest things about content creation is that we have it all on audio and video. So we can literally see the
Hmm.
growth, you know?
Oh my goodness. When I look back at videos from like 2019, I'm like, oh, look at her. She like had the vision. And so it's so cool to even look now and I'm like, wow, like it's we always come back to that little flame that we have in our mind. We may not get to it immediately. I think that's one of the
Hmm.
biggest lessons that I've learned in creating content so far is that we always have this burning, even as you said earlier about having a podcast before and having this vision. And
Hmm.
sometimes we live in a society that praises like urgency and immediacy. And if we don't do it, then we're never going to do it. But when it's truly like meant for us, alignment happens and we're able to pursue it, do it, and show up
Yes.
in a way that we probably wouldn't have been able to show up when we had that first vision of it years ago.
Yeah. And I think too, it's so important as you do continue on these journeys. And I remind myself this all the time because, if you're actively out consuming content, I mean, every other swipe, you're going to see somebody who's supposedly an expert in this, that, the other, and telling you why you need this, why
Mhm.
you should do that, why you like, for every topic under the sun, whether it's like the latest workout craze or what you should
Mhm.
eat or how you should pray or how you should meditate. I mean, all the things. And sometimes you just have to go, okay, I'm going to close this now and I'm going to keep focused and keep like doing what makes sense for me because burnout is so real. And
Mhm.
if you're sitting here trying to just let everybody else tell you what to do, you don't want to lose your own inner voice and that inner knowing of like, okay, this is what makes the most sense for me. And this makes the most sense for how I want to show up in this crazy content world and what I want to be giving to my audience and the people that choose to pay attention to me.
Yeah. What are some ways that you create? What are some ways that you protect your creative orbit?
I try really hard to remember that we're like I try not to put people on pedestals. I think that that is a challenge I have had my entire life is that I will quickly put somebody on a pedestal and I'm like, "Oh, well like they have a different degree than I do or they have this type of certification or they have more followers." And I really am like, "No, you can't do that." Because we are all different and we all have different goals and we all have
Mhm.
different ways that we shine. So of course learn from other people, but don't put somebody on a pedestal just because of X, Y, or Z. And I try really hard to also take a look, and just because somebody says, "Oh, I'm this, I'm that, I'm that," well, look at what it is that what they're doing. I mean, is that somebody
Mhm.
that you want that similar output? And if it's yes, then it's like, okay, great. Maybe they are a good person to learn from. But if
Mhm.
somebody is, claiming all of these things, but you don't like their content or you don't like their website or you don't like what they're doing, well, don't put them on a pedestal. Just kind of go, okay, we're in
Mhm.
different lanes and that's okay.
I love that you mentioned like we all have different goals. We all have like desire different outcomes. And so there's so much content out there about you can do it this way and you can grow this way. And if you post this way, and it gets so noisy very quickly. And being anchored in your mission, what you know you're trying to work towards, like all of those things allow for all of that noise. You can just keep scrolling and you can better identify people you want to watch, listen, and learn from.
Yeah, definitely.
What would you say is your biggest focus right now?
My biggest focus right now is my podcast and growing a community around it. I think another thing that I say all the time is I think, and it drives me crazy every time the words come out of my mouth, even when it's like appropriate to be using I think at the beginning of a sentence. You know, what I have learned from talking a lot about affairs and infidelity is that while the community is growing and while the podcast is growing from a data, like from a numbers perspective, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's because the subject is so touchy, there's not a lot of chatter in my social media outwardly, right? I get notes all the times. I have to look in my, other DM box all the time. And I get it, right? If I post a reel that talks about some type of affair conversation, if your Instagram handle is your name, you're probably not going to
Mm-hmm.
be like, oh yeah, when I was cheating on my husband last year, like it's just not what people are going to say. So
Yeah.
that's been it is what it is. But I will say that really looking at my data and what people are interested in and weaving in other opportunities for community growth. We talked a little bit, or you touched on a little bit about this new series that I'm doing on the podcast. So, like I mentioned, people love learning about affairs. I believe that people are so intrigued by them is because even though they are happening all around us, we don't always know because of the nature of an affair, right? You're
Mm-hmm.
stepping out on your partner when you're doing so. So, a lot of times when we hear about affairs, we hear about them when the people got caught. And we're so
Mm-hmm.
focused on the scandal of it all that we don't really know about the inner workings of like, hey, how did this even start? Where were these people
Mm-hmm.
in their life? Like, what was going on? What was this relationship actually built on? Was it just like getting together to have sex? Or do they actually really
Mm-hmm.
like each other, know each other? Like, did they do things? Did they act like a normal couple? All of these pieces, I think there's so much intrigue around because, again, we don't often hear about that because we're so focused on the scandal. So, by sharing what I've been doing on Mondays is sharing a story of a affair that happened in history. So it's coming from a place of, I'm not condoning it, but I'm not judging it, but I'm talking about it and kind of sharing the story and sharing
Yeah.
it from a perspective of this is what I found interesting when I did all of this research. So in some instances, there probably are people who have listened to them and been like, okay, I knew all this already. Okay, well, bravo to you. Like a lot of the things I've had no idea about. And I'm just like, oh, whoa, this was really interesting to me. So it's been a fun challenge.
Mm-hmm.
It's been a more significant challenge than I had anticipated, just because it's a different type of storytelling. It's not me having a guest on and just saying, like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
like, let's talk through this. Let's have a really meaningful conversation about your journey. It's like, oh, I want to make sure that I'm, having the right dates, the right times, the right names, the right players. And then the extra fun part too that I also didn't anticipate was going to be as fun was then kind of like weaving in my own thoughts and these moments that I have where I'm like, how bizarre. Like last week, my
Mm-hmm.
episode was on Frank Sinatra and Ava Gardner. And, Frank was at like the peak of his career when they started having their affair. And when he decided to divorce his wife, who was his high school sweetheart. And by that time, they'd been together for well over like probably 10, 15 years. People were boycotting him
Oh.
because he was divorcing his wife. And I just laughed as I was sharing that in this story as I was recording, because I was like, could you imagine boycotting your artist, your favorite artist, because he decided to divorce his wife? like in today's times, like that's just comical. But then also when you look back, like in the 1950s, the divorce rate was only a quarter of 1%.
Mm-hmm.
And today it's 50%. So we're living in vastly different times. But I was also just like amazed at how much things can change over, in 75 years time. So
Yeah, I'm curious from your research if you found like a common thread of where or how affairs start. Like in my head, as you're sharing that, I'm like, I feel like the workplace is like the most common place. But have you noticed like a common theme among how these things get started?
Not yet. I've only got 3 episodes under my belt, and I have a very long list that I am working through. But it does seem that, there's just always, I mean, there's always like something, right? Like there's something that is either lacking.
Mm-hmm.
I was doing research on the Beckhams, and I found that really just wild because at the very beginning of their marriage, it was like he was cheating on her like left and right,
Mm-hmm.
which is so sad. But also, I'm so much more intrigued now that they're still together. They always stayed together despite everything that was going on and all of this media attention and his global superstardom at such a young age with his soccer career. So that was really interesting to me when you think about, people who live in the spotlight and the opportunities that come their way in the form of, being able to hook up with other men or women is just very in your face.
Mm-hmm.
But no, I have not yet found a common thread. Although, if you listen often to my show, I talk a lot about communication being like the foundation of everything. And if you aren't communicating, things will break down.
Mm-hmm. But it also sounds like you'll be able to share stories of like people who've been able to navigate and find themselves on the other side. For the
Definitely.
Beckhams, for example, who have
Yeah.
experienced affairs in their marriage and have managed to come out still together and
Mhm.
united. So I'll be interested to
Yeah.
continue seeing who you share with us.
Yeah, thanks. Well, and here's an interesting like data point. So one of the things that I've always liked data, but I've always kind of just compartmentalized that I like data like in the business sense, but now I'm enjoying data so much and I'm like, well, the Scarlet Edit is a business. So I'm like
Hmm.
figuring all that out. So of course I'm weaving things in, but something I learned just this week when I put out the episode about Jeff Bezos and Lauren Sanchez, only 5 to 7% of people who start a relationship as an affair actually move on to get married. 75% of those end up getting divorced. And only 2% of people that start out as an affair and get married have like long term successful relationships. So I thought that was very just fascinating because it's such a small percentage. I mean, not super surprising, but a small percentage. But then to see and learn about their relationship and how it started when they were both married and then, they got married last summer themselves. So it'll be, you know, I'm because I am such a hopeless romantic, I am hopeful that, it does last for them, especially given their age and everything else. I always get sad when I see or hear about people like in their 70s, like getting divorced. I'm like, oh, that sucks. So I don't know. I love love and I hate lonely old people because I just think they're so sweet. So anyway,
Nikki, you've managed to I mean, not only share your story, but are really creating a space and community for others to live beyond their story, the changes that they've experienced in their life, any shame that they may feel from their story, and find a more fruitful way to move forward. But you're also like living out loud. And I so admire that about you. I've loved seeing your Instagram content and just allowing yourself to evolve publicly, to take up space and to let yourself be seen. And I've just really enjoyed seeing how your journey has evolved.
oh, thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Of course. And so as we close out, what is your advice for people who are feeling like they are in the thick of a transition season and are not sure what's on the other side for them?
Gosh, I would say keep going, trust yourself, have sit in moments of silence and like see what comes through and what feels right for you. And just like you are one of one. You are the only person who should be in charge of you and what you are doing. And even if it doesn't make sense to anybody else, if it makes sense to you, then keep going and keep doing it. Because when you get on the other side, God, it feels so good. And there's so much out there for you, and you deserve everything that you want and desire.
Nikki, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me.